A very good afternoon, good morning, everybody. We have no Paul with us today because he's having his procedure on his head. So thoughts and prayers with Paul today. Hopefully that will be fine. I spoke to him this morning. He's in good spirits. So hopefully he'll be back with us tomorrow. Never nice when you go under the knife. So he's fairly happy it was routine. So at least that's something. Okay, I'm going to get stuck in with the analysis. Got a few different bits and bobs to cover. First thing to be aware of is the big picture right now is the market's lacking any clear catalysts. The general worry out there, I was going to go to the stock selection. The general worry out there is that Trump's tariffs, it's just so uncertain. Is it going to be two tiers? Are there some countries going to be getting exemptions? If so, which countries? Apparently,
the UK economy is forecast to be larger at the end of the forecast period than what was seen in the October summary.
Trump was saying that Canada might get an exemption. Then there may be some copper tariffs that have been announced, and that's been boosting copper prices recently. If you just take a look at copper price, you can see the commodities have just been, where are we? I think I've got to drop over here. The commodity space. The copper prices surging higher on that news. And we haven't got any clear data out until the PCE print on Friday. So it's tricky. I'm going to be looking at volatility and just taking the cue from the open.
That household disposable income in real terms, that's set to grow this year at nearly twice the level forecast in October.
We've got spring statement headlines out of the UK. That's what's going on in the background. So as we look at the start of the session, we're opening up, it looks like around the top of yesterday's value area. So could be a good area for potentially shorting. Inventory from the overnight session, let's just check I've got that correct. Yeah, from the inventory session is just negative. And we're holding above the point of control for the developing value area for this week. And we've got some pretty important areas here at the 821 and obviously the 813, with the value area low from a previous week sitting down at that 5800 region, which is also the developing value area low for this week. So we've basically got major support on the weekly chart at that 5800. And look, we've made a high at 5827. We've made another high at 5834. Sold off. And we can see weakness at the moment. So the market's feeling weak. There's not any clear catalyst. Inventory is slightly negative from the overnight session. In terms of calendar events, we've got Fed's Kashkari speaking at 2. We've got Muslim at 5:10, and we've got a couple of bond auctions, 5-year and 2-year. So, there's not a whole lot. We've got oil inventory data coming out as well. We've had the UK spring statement and the UK inflation data out. If you take a look there, it was weaker broadly. So I used that this morning just to take a couple of shorts into the spring statement. The spring statement is going on now. And this is when the UK Chancellor, the equivalent to our treasurer for other countries, the UK Chancellor is just announcing a series of measures. They're breaking. The UK government is expected to borrow 47 billion more than the last October statement, and the expectation is that growth is going to be slashed from 2% to 1%. So slash growth, increased borrowing, all of that's just sort of weighing on the pound. CPI a little bit weaker, although CPI projections by the OBR have been revised higher. Let me just check what those upward revisions are.
So now we're seeing the DMO on gross gilt issuance. That's at 299.2 billion, 299.2. Consensus was the 304, 305 marks. This does tick up from the prime. They're not quite as much as expected. We are seeing an immediate bounce here in gilts, getting back above that 91 mark to the 91.45 figure.
Yeah, okay, so that is boosting the pound, that little headline there. Not as much borrowing as expected. Now, if you take a look at the CPI forecast, They're predicted to be
So again,
3.2%
the
in
gilt issuance, that's
2025.
at 299 spot 2. That's up slightly from the current projection set in October at 297. The Shire consensus, which was around the 304 mark, worth noting otherwise did have a consensus at 302. Misses have seen a immediate pickup here in gilts, lifted from just under the 91 mark to around 91.45. Still remain towards those levels. As a reminder, the high from this morning was at 58.
So inflation is expected to have another bump higher, and particularly for the next month as we head into the end of tax year, when you tend to get price increases in line with inflation. There's a whole tranche of inflation that's due to come into the UK economy. So OBR saying 3.2% for 2025 and 2.1%
Now starting to see the breakdown
for 2026.
Dated conventionals, that comes in at 110 spot 9, 110.
I'm just going to turn these spring statement. There's a number of them falling at the moment. So that data that came out with that weak CPI, given the fact that there was sort of bad news expected from the spring statement, it meant that it was suitable for selling. It's a more risky kind of trade, because the risk is that, you know, the pound just bobbles around and that CPI wasn't weak enough. It's still well above the Bank of England's target. But I took a couple of shorts and just held them down to the second standard deviation, and that was sort of a relevant low. If you look on the daily chart, you can just see that was a very relevant low that we've got. You know, will we break through there? Maybe not. So it just made sense to take profit at those low levels, and then added to another short as we went up. Tried to see if I can get under that second standard deviation, didn't, so closed it out for around break even, and then just trying to get into another position on that extra borrowing, but you know, market's very sort of tepid, so I'm kind of seeing there's nothing clear for me there in the pounds. I'll keep an eye on the statement, but that's what I'm I've kind of done with that now. What I'm looking for is something clear at the open. We've got the value area high. If we can open up above that value area high, then buying any dips makes sense from any trap sellers down at these levels. Ideally, I'd want to see us breaking out of those sort of 5836 highs. If we can get up above those highs, then looking for a run up to the 5845. On the hourly chart, sort of big areas to look forward to is you've got trap sellers here at the 22. So trap sellers there at the 22 and potential trap sellers there at the 29 if we can push above. So 22 and 29, very important. And then any trap buyers from the 22 would be important for the downside. So the 22 region is really important, which is just this area here. Okay, so if I start to see sort of these buyers getting trapped on any volume pushing underneath that daily VWAP, then that makes sense to look for a retest back down to the 5820. But also conscious of sort of dip buying that's going on. Okay, I think that, the only other thing is that private inventory data is out at 2, and that's being influenced by a larger than expected draw in the private inventory data. It came out like 4.6 million barrels draw in the private inventory. So for that to be a surprise, it needs to be greater than 4.6 million. And then 5-year bond auction, 2-year bond auction taking place towards the end of the session. Yeah, that's it. So basically with that one, Brian, 4.6 is the private. So that's what so instead of reading 0.9 forecast, put 4.6 million draw. So obviously if it's a huge build, 4 million build, that would be, very, very big surprise, and that should send oil lower, right? So just keep that in mind. Okay, apart from that, I've got a CNBC interview at 2:15, so I will have to go at around sort of 2:10-ish, and I'll be back around 2:30-ish. Sometimes it's a bit uncertain with the timing, so if I'm a bit late, I'm sorry, but usually this organization are quite good, but sometimes it can vary a bit depending on what happens. So I will be back as soon as I finish my interview. That's it, Brian. That's the suit. So that's why I got the tie suit, making myself presentable. Hey, Najam. Good to see you, mate. Thank you very much, Najam. That's it. Like to do my best for the program. Yeah, don't want to let myself down, especially with the hosts looking so smart. It's Maya and Hussein, really good, a couple of anchors actually. The only problem with the CNBC Arabia is in Arabic, so I'm translated. But in terms of like questions that they ask, they're the best. He's a CMT and a CFA, Hussein, and May's very good as well. They both ask some really good questions. So if if a problem, they're worth listening to. Okay, so should be live CNBC Arabia. In fact, CFR. Let me just have a little look if I can. I'll see if I've got the link. That's it. It'll be about 2:15. So we've got 15 minutes until the open. Again, on a day like today, just keeping our eye on volatility, particularly the VIX. Want to be led by that, and just seeing where we get with the big picture. We've got the S&P 500 just holding above this level here. So you've got that big swing point here holding above. There is space up to that 840, 880 on this chart. Different pricing on our futures chart, but just technically holding above that is lovely. Obviously getting below that, then we're opening a way back down to that 5720. But the momentum is higher. We saw that trend line break. Remember, Najem, you pointed out that 4-hour trend line broke out. We were looking for support, dip buyers here at the 600 region. We've got that breaking up gap, runaway gap, but that is also a rising window. So decent support. So we're in support. Next stop 5840. If we get back lower, then 5720 with strong support there at the 5700. All right then, folks. That is. Oh, the only other thing to say is this. I was looking at this Truflation Index. I know I've brought it up to you before, but I'm really quite impressed with it. If you look at the composition of it, the beauty of it is that this is updated virtually in real time. So it gives you a better indication of where inflation is right now. So potentially it's a leading indicator for the inflation prints that we get. And you see that at the moment, they've got a 2.24%. Government reported rate 2.5%. Where is let me just bump this up, refresh this page. Right, it's at 2.8. With this Truflation Index, they've got it at 2.24, and they've got it continuing moving lower. So helpful little index. And if you look at the US inflation index, they've got that, moving even further down, right? So I definitely think this is worth looking at. Let's see if they've got they've got the composition there, and they've got the headline, moving sharply lower. So this index is not flagging up a big inflationary problem right now. Obviously, the UK inflation is still quite hot, but we'll see. Okay, so here we are at the open. 15 minutes to go. Got some sellers stepping in. 22, big region here. This value area high, big region there. We're keeping a close eye on pushing back into this value area high, back down, and then looking for dip buyers at the 5819, or on a strong volume break downside, looking for a retest and a quick sell. See if we can get down to the 5820. Gosh, the UK has some awful problems at the moment. It's so difficult. I've never known a time like it for the UK. I really haven't. It just shows you how quickly things can change. Point of control now at the 5925. Buyers up there holding above the daily VWAP on the 1 minute chart.
Just seeing remarks from Canadian PM Carney says if he wins the April 28th election, his government would create a $2 billion Canadian fund to boost the auto sector's competitiveness.
Okay, point of control holding still. Let's see what we get on the 5, eh? I wouldn't mind a sell here, really. I'm going to take a quick sell. I like that. I think that's an attractive area for selling. Just up into that value area high.
There from Canadian PM says his government would work with the industry to build more car parts in the country.
You got this nice kind of 15-minute area here with those buyers here trapped. So I'll have another sell up there as well. Just with those buyers now trapped on volume by these sellers. So let's see. That's nice, a 15-minute candle setup really. Hit that standard deviation. Now some bit of selling volume coming in now. It's kind of the right place for it. Got to be careful here. Take one position off. Gonna move the other one to break even now and see if we can just break down through this area. All right, need us to get through that. That makes sense. Just see if we can get the 5-minute close here. All right, I'm going to take that off, just off that standard deviation. So, right, Now go back to waiting. So that's a couple of positions, right? Hit that standard deviation, bouncing back up. Now let's see what happens from here. So the Wednesday, March 26, plus 1300 for the day. That's very nice. And how did that all break down? Well, first of all, had the weak UK CPI data that came out. Now, what this trade was, you can see the CPI came in just slightly softer than the markets were expecting. Now, that in itself was not enough to short the pound. It was lower than markets were expecting. And with the spring statement coming out from the UK, the expectations it was going to be bad news. So markets were wanting an excuse to sell the pound into that, and that provided a little bit of relief for the Bank of England and a little bit of natural sell pressure for the pound. So take a look at the pound, and you can see here in the futures market, just sold off nicely on the event, entered a couple of positions and took them off as we hit the second standard deviation. And that was just before the data. Didn't want to hold into the data. When I was there, you could see on the daily chart, that was kind of like just into those swing points here. On the weekly chart, you can see that there's a very nice hammer reversal on the weekly chart. So there was always a possibility that I could have sort of snapped through that area. But you know, it just wasn't to be. But that does look like a nice reversal area for the pound. So wouldn't be surprised to see more pound dollar weakness. Got that area there. Yeah, halfway to pass. I'm halfway passing the 300,000 evaluation, but I'm finding it pretty hard to get 20 grand. But we're nearly there, and if I keep a grand at a time, that'll be fine. Then it was coming to the session, and as we came to the session today, there was an absence of news really, and had a two-way bias. Happy to go shorts or longs today, and just was going to be dictated by the data as it came out. As we came into the open, the market sort of quickly showed its hand really, and we saw just before the open, we had these sellers trapping these buyers at the top there. So with those trapping those buyers, I was looking for an opportunity to short at the open, and we got sellers trapping buyers. We're back up to those levels, took a couple of positions short, took one off, left the other one at break even, and then took it off as we hit the standard deviation. Then you can see that these buyers at this stage of the day, delta was positive. There wasn't anything to push it one way or the other, really. Europe was down, but you know, you could see that turn around. There wasn't a lot of negative data, and there's been optimism and pessimism over Trump's tariffs. It could literally market go either way. And we were sitting in a fairly decent support area. So pushing above that area, you can see you've got sellers trapped by these buyers, took a couple of buys off that. Now, it was quite quickly apparent that that was going nowhere. And as it became clear that there was nothing happening on, took both those longs off, and then price happily started chugging down lower. Then it was firmly looking for shorts, especially as we broke through that swing point. Price broke through here, and I was looking to short. At the time, I think the point of control was maybe up this area, or we had these, I think we had some trapped buyers on the 15. Yeah, just up here. So those trapped buyers on the 15, that's it. As price moved there, looking for that to hit that area and to sell off. Now, took it off very quickly. And that was partly because of the way the retracement took place. It happened on like a delta spike, and I was concerned that is there some news out there? Is there some reason why we suddenly had 1900 contracts long shoot in and then suddenly disappear? But at the end of the day, it was nothing to worry about. There was no particular headline, and markets just carried on lower. Tried another sell here with these sellers coming in on volume, trapping these buyers up there, looking for that to see, is that going to be the continuation here? Gave it a few minutes, clear it wasn't. Then we had another retracement, sell off, and then it was a clear opportunity to sell from the point of control. Now, what happened here is we had sellers on volume, right? And if you look at the chart there, I looked at it and thought, well, That's a strong sell bias. The point of control's moved down here. So I'm happy to sell from any retracements to that point of control into that value area low. So sold from the point of control, took profit at the value area low, just under 5 points. Lovely. Try another sell from there. Try to buy from there to see if these buyers could trap these sellers. Entered speculatively mid-candle, and I was trying to trade the 1 minute chart, see if I can get a 1 minute breakout on that. Where was that move? I was up here. So is this going to delta starting to build? Can we get a run up to the VWAP? As soon as that 1 minute candle closed lower, no way. Okay, this is breakout isn't happening. Had to be very sensitive to that one. So out for sort of, very small loss. Then got the next buy and sell rather, which was just going with the momentum lower. We had these buyers here getting trapped on the 5 minute. That was crucial. This was the majority of those buyers here and buyers here. Both of them looked trapped. So everyone trying to bottom from here was trapped here. Entered just before the close of the 5 minute speculatively, and could see volume starting to build. Look, building, aggressive sellers. Entered, took it lower. Lovely. Then tried exactly the same thing as we went lower here. Entered on volume and then took it off too soon. And I would have had the same kind of move if I just had a little bit more patience. End result of the day, plus 1300. So good day. Going to leave it at that and then come back tomorrow. And yeah, that's all for now, folks. Hopefully we'll have pullback tomorrow, and hopefully the procedure's gone well. Thanks for all your input today, guys. Been lovely to spend time with you all, and I really look forward to seeing you tomorrow. Have a very nice evening.